She didn't clock out, didn't call her sister, didn't leave a note on the patient chart she'd just signed. By 3:12 p.m., Dr. Amira Bell had walked out of her dental office for the first time in 12 years, without saying a word. Surveillance caught her backing out slowly. Rain was starting, the kind that taps soft against the windshield, barely enough to use the wipers. Her phone was fully charged. She had an overnight bag in the back seat. No one knew she was gone, until she didn't pick up her grandson at 5. A respected dentist, a mother of 4, twice divorced, but careful with her heart. Then, just days earlier, a message arrived. A man she'd never met, a name no one recognized, and for the first time in years, she felt wanted. Hours later, she crossed the state line. Her phone cut off, and when she was finally found, she couldn't explain where she'd been, or who she had seen. But it didn't start with her disappearance. It started with something far smaller, a single photo, and a name that didn't exist. By every outward measure, Dr. Amira Bell had done it right. A respected dentist with her own thriving practice on Cascade Road, known for her warm laugh, her gentle hands, her velvet patience with frightened children. At 52, her life looked like something you'd frame, clean, earned, and graceful. But for the last 6 years, Amira had been coming home to silence. The divorce was behind her. The long recovery from what came before, decades behind her. She'd raised her daughter alone, built a name from nothing, bought her own home, learned to rest in her own skin. But something shifted after the pandemic. Her house grew louder in its quiet. Sundays stretched into Mondays without shape. Some nights, she caught herself talking back to the television, just to hear a voice answer. Her daughter, Nyla, now 25, had her own apartment, her own world, her own fears. "Mama, please don't get on those dating apps. People out here are crazy." Amira had laughed, but something about the way Nyla said it stayed with her. Not fear, a kind of knowing. Still, that night, after reheating leftover curry and folding the same blanket she folded every evening, Amira opened her laptop, then paused, then opened it again. She typed slowly. Username, NewStart52. Site, ConnectedHearts.com. The profile photo she uploaded wasn't new, but it wasn't old either. No filters. Just her. Eyes soft, lips uncertain. Hours passed like minutes. Dozens of messages came in, most one ignored. Until one. "Hello, Amira. You have a beautiful smile. I'm Isaiah. I hope this doesn't feel too forward, but I'd love to talk sometime. Real conversation. No games." His profile photo was sharp. A clean-cut man in a gray t-shirt standing near a dog, some kind of shepherd mix. His eyes were warm. His words seemed careful. She read the message 3 times, then hovered over her keyboard. Type, "Hi, Isaiah. Thank you. I'd like that." Then she paused, fingers resting on the keys. A strange flicker in her chest. Not fear. Something older. Like remembering a room she'd locked and walked away from years ago. She deleted the message, then retyped it, then pressed send. Her laptop made the soft ding of a message delivered. And somewhere, miles away, a man calling himself Isaiah Stone read it and smiled. On October 2nd, 2023, 8:47 p.m., rain tapped against the windows of her Atlanta condo as Dr. Amira Bell sat curled on the corner of her sectional, scrolling through messages. Her TV played quietly in the background, something about rising mortgage rates, but she wasn't listening. She was staring at a screen filled with words from a man she'd never met. He called himself Isaiah Stone, said he was a traveling tech consultant from Charlotte, currently posted in Dallas for a short-term cybersecurity contract. Tall, fit, brown skin, a calm smile in every photo. In his bio, he described himself as God-fearing, loyal, emotionally available, and tired of chasing temporary love. On paper, he read like every wish she'd folded into a prayer. The photos? Heavily filtered. A faint golden hue over his skin. Always the same 2 poses. Always alone. No friends. No candid moments. Nothing taken indoors. And not a single video call. Even after 3 weeks of daily messages. When she asked why, His reply came swiftly. Old injury from my last deployment. Face is still healing. I don't like cameras. He added a heart emoji, then a verse from Psalms, then a sentence that stopped her breath. You remind me of everything I thought I'd lost in the world. Amira read it 3 times before setting the phone down. Her fingers trembled, not from fear, from something more dangerous, hope. He wrote like a man who had studied loneliness and knew exactly where it lived in a woman's chest. Every morning, a Bible verse. Every night, a poem or a voice note. His accent was soft, educated, like someone who'd gone to school in the Northeast. He pronounced every word carefully, like it mattered. And to Amira, it did. Still, there were things she chose not to ask. Why he never mentioned family. Why every photo had a cloudy background. Why he said his mom passed in 2019, but one message mentioned visiting her this summer. Maybe she missed it. Maybe she didn't want to catch it. Because when a woman has gone years without hearing someone say her name like it meant something, she'll close her eyes to things that don't match. Even smart women. Even ones with degrees and scars to prove they've lived through worse. She told her sister Yolanda one night over wine. Read Isaiah's messages out loud. Even played one of his voice notes. Yolanda frowned. That man is either married, or he's a ghost. Amira laughed. A little too quickly. But later that night, as she lay in bed, she clicked on his profile again. Watched the glowing blue check mark flicker beside his username. Isaiah Stone _77. I can't sleep at night thinking about your laugh. His last message read. She smiled, then dimmed the screen, never wondering why someone so successful had so much free time, never asking why his photos were always too perfect and too few, never guessing that the man behind those words didn't even exist. If someone sent you love in the exact language your heart longed for, would you question who they really were? It had been just over 3 months since Isaiah first typed the words, "You make me feel found," and somewhere between daily verses and midnight check-ins, Amira had let go of her usual caution. When he asked to meet, he didn't just ask. He choreographed it like a secret symphony. I wanted to be special, he wrote. Just us. No noise. No distractions. Meet me halfway, Blue Ridge. I'll take care of the rest. She hesitated. The old Amira would have searched for addresses, read reviews, asked for photos. But this Amira, this version, was already halfway in. A few days later, he messaged a screenshot, a $500 wire transfer. To show you I'm not one of those guys. She stared at the receipt, the way someone might study handwriting on a forgotten love letter. Part disbelief, part ache. A voice in her head whispered, Google it. Trace it. Just be sure. She didn't. The money hit her account. She booked a weekend off, canceled 3 cleanings and 2 crown placements. She told her assistant she'd be at a wellness retreat. She texted Nyla, spa weekend. No phone. Love you, Red Heart. Nyla typed back, okay. Have fun, Ma. She packed lightly. No makeup. Bible in her tote. White cotton dress folded in the suitcase like a peace offering to herself. The drive was long, slow, and rain-threatened. Gospel played low from the dashboard. Old Shirley Caesar hymns about trusting even when you can't see the road ahead. The clouds got heavier the deeper she went into the hills. She passed rusted signs, crooked fences, gas stations that hadn't seen fuel in years. Blue Ridge wasn't a town. It was a blink, a forgotten patch off the interstate with 1 liquor store, 2 pawn shops, and the smell of fried oil hanging in the air like fog. The Blue Ridge and sat alone by the roadside. Paint peeling. Vacancy light flickering even in daylight. Plastic blinds drawn tight across each room like secrets. She parked. The engine ticked into silence. Her phone buzzed. 1 message. Room 6. It's open. She stepped out. The gravel crunched beneath her flats. No voices. No footsteps. Just the hum of a vending machine and a distant dog barking behind a rusted fence. She stood outside room 6. The curtain twitched. Or maybe that was her imagination. The door was ajar. And from inside, there was nothing. No welcome. No smile. No Isaiah. Just dim light leaking through the doorframe. and the quiet kind of stillness that makes the skin behind your ears start to itch. Would you have ventured into that room? Let's know your thoughts in the comments below. The door wasn't locked, but she still knocked. Once, then twice. The wood was faded, splintered near the handle. The kind of door that hadn't felt pain in years. She glanced back at her car. The lot was empty, except for a rusted red pickup with a busted tail light. A faded soda bottle rolled in the breeze. Her phone read, "No service." Then, the sound. Metal dragging against metal. A lock clicking. Slowly. The door creaked open just an inch. Then more. And that's when she saw him. The man standing inside was not Isaiah Stone. Not even close. He was older, by at least a decade. Maybe more. Pockmarked cheeks. Slight limp. Heavy set, with the kind of shoulders that slumped from shame. His shirt looked pressed, like he'd tried to prepare. But his eyes told the truth before his mouth ever could. "Amira," he said, like a question he hoped wouldn't hurt. She froze. Her mouth parted, but nothing came out. Her heart kicked hard against her chest, as if trying to wake her up. This wasn't a joke. This wasn't a delay. This was him. Her thumb reached for her phone. A flicker of survival instinct. But the screen just blinked again. No service. She stepped back. 2 steps. Then 3. He didn't move. "I can explain," he said softly. "Please, don't leave yet." She blinked. Once. That voice, it was the same cadence. Slower. But him. The messages. The poems. The late-night calls. The man who called her sunrise. Who quoted Psalms every Sunday morning. That voice was now sitting inside a stranger's body. His shoulders sagged. He stepped aside, slowly, and gestured toward the room. "My name's not Isaiah," he admitted. "It's Ellis Ray. Ellis Ray Mathis. I'm 56. I'm not a tech consultant. I've never been to Charlotte." She didn't speak. Didn't blink. She needed every second to process the wreckage. "I did time," he added. "Fraud. Years ago. I messed up my life and tried to become someone else. Then I met you, and I messed up again. But I swear to God, Amira, I meant everything I said to you." She stared. The room behind him was dim. The blinds were drawn, and the air inside looked stale. She could smell old carpet, hear the faint hum of a mini fridge. Her eyes scanned the corners for exits. Reflex. The kind of fear that survivors don't ever fully shake. "But I really do love you," he said again. Her breathing slowed, not calm, but controlled. The way people breathe when they're balancing between fear and fury. Her mind flashed to Nyla, to her sister Yolanda, to the warnings, the suspicions, the gut instincts she had buried beneath his prayers and sweet words. This wasn't a scam. This was a man, a liar, a felon, a broken thing pretending to be whole. And yet, the emotion in his eyes wasn't fake, not slick, not practiced. It was raw, and for a second, just one, it didn't feel like a predator standing there. It felt like someone lonely, just like her. She could have walked away. She almost did. But then she stepped forward. One foot, then the next. Like crossing over into a story she couldn't rewrite. She paused in the doorway, her fingers brushing against the doorframe. The air inside was warm. Stale. Still. She walked in. And behind her, the door closed. Surveillance footage shows Amira entering room 6 at 8:13 p.m. She doesn't reappear until 11:02. No one sees her leave. No one hears the door close. But the motel clerk, a young man named Troy working his second night shift, tells police months later that he remembered the sound. Heard crying, real low, like someone was trying not to let it out. He didn't knock. Didn't call 911. Didn't want to get involved. What happened inside that room during those missing hours will never be fully known. But fragments surfaced later. 3 days after she left Blue Ridge Inn, Amira checked into a free walk-in clinic in Knoxville. She gave a false last name. No drugs were detected in her system. No signs of physical assault. But the nurse who saw her wrote, "Patient appears withdrawn, tense, avoids eye contact, flinches at light touch, declines counseling referral, asks for directions to the nearest church." She didn't tell anyone what happened. Not the nurse. Not her sister. But weeks later, during a recorded conversation with a social worker, she finally said. He didn't touch me like that. But he took something from me I can't name. Like, he reached in and moved things around. That was the only time she spoke of room 6. Her phone records from that night show just one browser search at 3:17 a.m. How to report someone who isn't who they say they are. She never followed through. She never returned to that motel. But she didn't go home either. At 5:22 a.m., dashcam footage shows her car parked at a truck stop just outside Chattanooga. She sits still for 37 minutes. No music. Lights off. Hands on the wheel. Then she pulls out, heading south. By Sunday evening, Nyla knew something was wrong. No meme. No call. No made it home safe text. She waited until Monday afternoon to call police, trying not to panic, trying to believe her best friend had simply gone off the grid for a day. But by the time the report was filed, Amira had already been missing for 24 hours. When investigators ran her phone records, the last ping came from a cell tower just outside Chattanooga. It took another 12 hours to locate the SUV, a silver Hyundai, abandoned behind a shuttered diner off Route 58. Out of sight. No cameras. Driver's side door cracked open. Keys placed neatly on the passenger seat. A folded dental coat underneath. Her shoes were found in the trunk, both of them side by side, clean, as if deliberately removed. Not thrown. Not kicked off. Just left. Inside the back seat. A stack of ripped-up photos, all the same man. Used makeup wipes. A single pink sticky note that read, "None of it was real." Local detectives opened a missing persons file. But with no signs of struggle and no body, it didn't rise to urgency. State troopers' report noted, no indication of criminal activity at this time. Adult has right to disappear. Still, Nyla pushed. She called her contacts. She reminded them Amira was a medical professional, that she never missed work, never ghosted her patients. But the case sat idle until Tuesday afternoon, when a clerk at the Blue Ridge turned over surveillance footage showing Amira entering room 6 alone on Friday night. She was not seen exiting. 2 days. No exit. No checkout. No activity on her credit card since. That's when the BOLO was issued. It was the last time Nyla ever heard her voice. Why would someone vanish after surviving something awful? Is it fear or shame that silences victims? The man in the photographs, the one who called himself Isaiah Stone, never existed. Not in any DMV. Not in any hospital. Not in any federal database. He was a ghost with perfect cheekbones and flawless skin. But he did have a face. That face belonged to a man named Jason Avery. Age 42. Professional model. Based in Dallas. He had no criminal record. No connection to Memphis. No idea who Amira Bell was. And when investigators finally reached out, Jason was stunned. Jason Avery said, "When they showed me the pictures, I thought it was one of my old ad campaigns or something. But then they showed me text messages. Hundreds of them. This woman had been in love with me. And I had no idea. They showed him screenshots, dozens of them. Isaiah laughing. Isaiah, shirtless. Isaiah, smiling with a caption. This is who I'm fighting to become." Jason stared in silence. Jason Avery said, "I felt sick. I felt stolen." Turns out, Jason's photos had been lifted from an old portfolio site that had since been taken down. Whoever built the Isaiah Stone identity had used AI tools to enhance the stolen photos, sharpen his jawline, warm his eyes, even animate fake video clips sent over text. Amira never had a chance. This wasn't catfishing. This was digital psychological warfare. FBI joins the case. The Memphis PD turned over the case to the FBI within 48 hours. It was no longer just a missing persons case. It had become part of a growing federal concern, romance-based deception scams, which had swindled Americans out of over $1.3 billion in the last year alone. And Amira wasn't the only one. Special Agent Tame Morris said, "These scams are designed to overwhelm. They don't just trick people. They isolate them, replace everyone in their life with a fantasy. And by the time the victim realizes something is wrong, they don't know how to explain what happened. It's called intimacy engineering, and Ellis Ray Mathis had done it before. The FBI's cyber unit traced Isaiah's fake email account to a VPN that had masked its origin. But one slip-up, a brief moment when the VPN disconnected, revealed a single IP address, Memphis, Tennessee, registered under a parolee's name, Ellis Ray Mathis. Age, 56. Criminal record, fraud, identity theft, coercion. Former inmate at South Central Correctional Facility. Released 2 years ago. No known occupation. No registered address. But in his former prison records, something else. He had filed paperwork, under a prison alias, to enroll in an online creative writing course called Fictional Lives and Digital Identities. Investigators believe Ellis used public libraries, burner phones, and romance forums to build the Isaiah persona. He knew what kind of man Amira would want. Her public posts, her charity work, even her patient reviews, all gave him ammunition. One message from Ellis's Isaiah account read, "I want to be the kind of man who makes you feel like your worst day is behind you." He wasn't just scamming her. He was replacing her reality with something custom-built. He didn't take money. He didn't take photos. He took something else. When investigators checked Amira's phone, the one recovered near her abandoned SUV, they found just one active search in her browser history at 3:17 a.m., 3 nights before she vanished. Can you report someone who isn't who they say they are? No calls to 911. No text to Nyla. Just that one question. Special Agent Morris said. She knew. She knew something wasn't right. But the damage had already been done. She didn't trust herself enough to tell anyone. Jason Avery gave the FBI full permission to use his photos and likeness in court to pursue charges. He also gave a brief press statement. No cameras, just audio. Saying, if me showing up helps stop him from doing this again, then do it. Use everything. Just don't let this keep happening to women like her. The public never saw his face again. On October 12th, a warrant was officially issued for the arrest of Ellis Ray Mathis for felony identity fraud, obstruction of justice, and potential unlawful psychological coercion under federal cybercrime statutes. But by then, Ellis Ray had vanished. No fingerprints. No credit card usage. No recent facial matches. Gone, just like Isaiah. He wasn't handsome. He wasn't charming. He wasn't even particularly smart. But he knew what you wanted. And for some people, that's all it takes to become real. A cell phone screen lights up in the dark. Blocked number. 3 voicemails. No words. Just soft sobs, then a strained whisper. I'm sorry I let you down. Nyla's hand trembles as she hits replay. Again and again. The same voice. 3 separate recordings. Sent hours apart. A woman crying, whispering words half swallowed by fear. Apologies, breathy regret, and once a name. Nyla. Audio forensics confirm what Nyla already knew. The voice is Amira's. A vocal match score of 97.8%. Each message was left between 1:11 and 4:03 a.m., the night Amira vanished. Investigators now believe Amira may have been held captive, not physically, but psychologically. Dr. Naomi Brooks, trauma psychologist, said, "What we're likely seeing here is a phenomenon known as trauma bonding, where the victim forms an emotional connection with their abuser, even in the face of harm. It's survival, not affection. But it looks the same from the outside." She leans in. The bars are invisible, but they hold just the same. Security footage of the hospital where Amira appeared 2 days later. 11:42 p.m. She walks in alone. No shoes. Face bruised, but not from impact. From crying. From sun. From dehydration. A nurse later said, she looked like someone who'd been underwater too long. Like grief had soaked her. Amira gave no last name. She didn't ask for police. She didn't mention Ellis Ray. But when shown a photo of him 3 days later, her only response was, "I thought he was Isaiah. And then I thought, maybe I wasn't me either." Amira Bell is placed on a 72-hour psychiatric hold. She doesn't fight it. She doesn't speak for the first 8 hours. When she does, her first words are, "What day is it?" Doctors chart signs of acute emotional trauma. Amira is alert, but detached, speaking in fragments. Sometimes she uses past tense when referring to herself. Sometimes she doesn't refer to herself at all. The psychiatrist, Dr. Lena Okoye, notes the hallmarks of dissociation, a break in identity triggered by psychological harm so severe, the brain protects itself by severing ties with reality. She tells them this. She remembers a motel bathroom. She remembers crying. She remembers getting on a Greyhound bus. No memory of buying the ticket. The next thing she knew, she was sitting on a bench inside a terminal. In her coat pocket, a note written on receipt paper. "You're free now." No signature. She asked the staff a question most survivors never speak aloud. If I didn't say no, but I didn't say yes either, was I taken? Or did I give myself away? Dr. Okoye answers carefully. Consent isn't silence, and control isn't love. It takes another day before Amira finally says his name out loud. Not Isaiah. Ellis. He made me believe I wasn't worth anything unless I stayed. The staff don't ask for details. They listen, and with every word she speaks, it becomes clear. Amira wasn't missing. She was rewired. Room 6 was supposed to be another cheap stopover on the highway to nowhere. A nameless motel off I-22, already half-eaten by time. But for Ellis Ray Mathis, it was the end of the line. Inside, the room was cleaned, but not clean. The linens were stripped, the mirror wiped, but a drop of blood had dried underneath the dresser leg. Hidden, missed, and when crime scene techs lifted the laminate flooring, they found more. Blood. A lot more. For days after Amira Bell walked into a Birmingham hospital, dehydrated, incoherent, traumatized, the FBI received a call from a rural sheriff's department in Mississippi. A motel housekeeper had found a stench leaking through the drywall. Inside the bathroom of room 6, the bloated, decomposing body of a man later identified as Ellis Ray Mathis. Stab wound to the neck. Defensive wounds on the forearms. No forced entry. No signs of struggle in the hallway. And no witnesses. Investigators found the room's door was locked from the inside. But the window, small and rusted, had been slid open. The screen popped out and tossed into the alley below. And behind the motel, partially buried in mud, a pocket knife. Inside the folds of its handle, Amira Bell's fingerprint. He had told her he'd never let her go. That no one would believe her. That if she ran, he'd burn it all down again. But she didn't run. Not this time. What happened inside room 6 is still only theory. But here's what the forensic timeline suggests. Ellis Ray was facing away from the bed when the first wound hit. The blade entered clean, a single thrust to the neck. He turned, grabbed at her. She stabbed again, and again. Then she watched him bleed out, silently. Not in a rage, not screaming, just waiting. When police traced her GPS data, it showed Amira had stayed in the motel room for 2 full hours after Ellis stopped moving. She wiped down surfaces, deleted messages, disconnected her phone's location, then slipped out the window and walked 2 miles to a truck stop where she boarded a Greyhound bus headed east. Inside her pocket, a note, scrawled in thick black ink. "You're free now." The agents assigned to her case had already built her up as a survivor. They'd championed her resilience, her heartbreak. They weren't ready for what came next. One forensic agent broke protocol. He asked her directly, "Did you kill him?" Amira didn't answer. She just stared, not cold, not cruel, but empty, like someone who'd turned off the last light inside her mind. When the evidence became impossible to ignore, fingerprints, blood trace, phone metadata, her own journal notes, the FBI made the call. She was arrested at a private trauma facility 3 days later, just minutes before discharge. Speech balloon: if someone kills their captor when no one is watching, is that justice? Or rewriting the truth? In court, the prosecution called it murder. Premeditated. Calculated. Cold. But those who had read the psychiatric evaluations saw something different. A woman who had been trapped in a war for her own mind, and won the only way she could. For months, Amira Bell had been erased, piece by piece, isolated from family, emotionally blackmailed, gaslit into obedience, told she was only safe when she was submissive. She was not held by chains. She was held by shame. People ask why victims don't leave. But they never asked what they'd do if leaving meant dying, or worse, being dragged back and punished twice as hard. Amira didn't just survive Ellis Ray Mathis. She outwitted him, outlasted him, and in room 6, she ended him. To the jury, it was evidence of premeditation. To the public, it was a moral riddle. To survivors watching in silence, it was something else entirely. She didn't stab a man. She stabbed a sentence. A life sentence of being less than human. And here's where the story turns on you. Because it's easy to judge from safety. But what if it were your daughter? Your sister? You? Locked in a room with a man who convinced the world he loved you, while slowly destroying you. What would justice look like then? What would freedom cost? If you had no help, no escape, and no voice, would you wait to be saved? Or would you do what Amira did? Let us know in the comments.